Hi, everybody. I'm Judy, the YouTube lawyer. Today, we are going to resume reading the deposition of Wendi Adelson. This was done on July 2nd, 2019. And today, I am joined by Susan of True Lifestyles and also Joel Waltman of Surviving the Survivor. So please be sure to subscribe to their channels also if you're not subscribed already. Hey, everybody.
Hi, Betty.
Thank you for being here again, and let's get through this deposition. Are you ready?
Yes, we'll try to read fast, you guys. And
okay, sure. So, Ms. Kawass.
Do you recall that there was, or how many times did Detective Isom try to contact you after the memorial service?
Assert.
I assert.
When is it that you retain counsel?
Assert.
I assert.
To your knowledge, was Detective Isom made any attempts since then to speak to you again?
Assert.
I assert.
Has anybody from the state's attorney's office in Leon County reached out to you to get a statement from you?
Assert.
I assert.
Okay, all right. Now, do you recall a time shortly after the homicide in Miami, going to dinner with your brother Charlie?
Assert.
I assert.
Where he called this the celebration dinner?
Assert.
I assert.
At this dinner that you threw up at the table after your brother said something to you?
Assert.
I assert.
Has your brother ever admitted to you that he had someone that he hired, anybody, to have Dan killed?
Assert.
I assert.
When was it apparent to you that your family members were considered suspects by the Tallahassee Police Department?
Assert.
I assert.
When you moved to Miami after the memorial service, did you ever go back to Tallahassee again?
I think the premise of the question may not be correct.
Okay. Did you move down to Miami after the memorial service permanently?
You can answer.
No.
Is it fair to say you came to Miami and spent some time there?
You can answer that.
I came to Miami with the intent to spend a few days.
To stay with your family?
You can answer that.
Yes.
Okay, were you staying with them at their home in South Beach?
You can answer that.
We don't have a home on South Beach.
It's a condo?
They were renting an apartment, and I stayed there.
Now, you stayed there with them, with the boys?
Yes.
When was the decision made that you wanted to permanently reside in South Florida?
You can answer that.
I'm still deciding.
Okay.
I haven't made that decision.
So no permanent decision has been made?
You can answer that.
No.
Where do you still have the house up in Tallahassee?
You can answer that.
No.
When was it sold, or did you sell it or rent it?
You can answer that.
So I did not rent it. I sold it, so it became an asset of the boys, and there was a bad storm in Tallahassee that destroyed the house. Then I had the house rebuilt, and then I sold it after that.
Okay. But what year was that? I think that it got destroyed.
No, that's me.
Oh, sorry.
You say, okay.
Sorry, okay, Judy.
But what year that was, I think it got destroyed December 2014, but maybe it got sold at some point in 2015.
When was it? Did you eventually enroll the boys in school in South Florida?
You can answer that.
Yes.
When was that? 2014?
You can answer that.
It was August of 2014.
And how long did you stay with your, well, did you eventually move out and go get your own place?
You can answer that.
Yes.
How long did you stay with your parents before that happened?
You can answer that.
I think I started my lease in June 2015.
Okay, were you living in the area of South Beach close to your parents?
You can answer that.
I stayed in the same school district, so I didn't have to move the boys.
As Mr. DeCoste. South Point? You can answer that.
Yes.
Where did your brother live at the time, Charlie?
Assert.
I assert.
Did Charlie live in the house in Coral Springs? How long has he lived there?
You can answer that.
He never lived in the house in Coral Springs.
Whose house is that? Is that your parents' house?
You can answer that.
It's my parents' house.
Where's Charlie's house that he owns?
Assert.
I assert.
How long has he been living at that house?
Assert.
I assert.
Does he still live at that house?
Assert.
I assert.
How many times have you stayed at that house?
Assert.
I assert.
Okay, are you aware that Charlie has a safe in his house?
Assert.
I assert.
Have you ever seen Charlie counting money in your presence?
Assert.
I assert.
Or taking any forms of cash from the safe?
Assert.
I assert.
Are you aware if Charlie has any video surveillance in his home?
Assert.
I assert.
Is Charlie a father now?
You can answer that.
Yes.
How old is this child?
You can answer that.
He was born in December.
Of last year?
He'll be 2 this December.
Okay, this December in blank.
Yes.
Is Charlie married?
You can answer that.
No.
Is he with the mother of the child?
You can answer that.
I don't know.
When was the last time? I'm not sure if I asked you that. I apologize if I'm repeating myself. When was the last time you saw June?
You can answer that.
I have no idea when I last saw June. She was at a family gathering of some sort, maybe for a holiday or Thanksgiving. I feel like I was clerking at the time because she thought I was a supermarket clerk. So it had to be during the clerkship year of 2015 and 2016.
That's the last time you've seen her?
Yes.
Are you aware of whether or not Charlie and her are still in communication?
You can answer that.
I have no idea.
When was the last time you've spoken to your brother Charlie?
Assert.
I assert.
Do you see your brother Charlie often?
Assert.
I assert.
When was the last time you saw your mother?
Assert.
I assert.
When was the last time you saw your father?
Assert.
I assert.
Did you have a life insurance policy along with your ex-husband?
On her own life?
On his. Did you have a life insurance policy on him?
Assert.
I assert.
Did you receive any proceeds if you did have a life insurance policy?
Assert.
I assert.
Did that money go towards you, or did that money go into a trust for your 2 boys?
Assert.
I assert.
Do you have access to that money?
Assert.
I assert.
Do you have any personal knowledge of your parents' financial situation?
Assert.
I assert.
Were you aware of a point in time where your mother suggested that your father and your brother Charlie would each go in on making $1 million offer to Dan to allow you to relocate to South Florida?
Assert.
I assert.
Do you know if, in fact, that offer was made to him?
Assert.
I assert.
Do you know if he rejected that offer?
Assert.
I assert.
When is the last time you spoke to Jeffrey Lacasse?
The date?
Yes, the date, yes. Have you ever spoken to him since the homicide?
You can answer that.
I remember talking to him in late July, maybe August of that year. That's definitely the last time I talked to him.
At that time, did it seem to you that he was trying to fish for some information concerning the details of the homicide?
Assert.
I assert.
Had he asked those questions? Do you remember what information you provided to him if you did?
Assert.
I assert.
Did you have any other conversations with him at that time?
You can answer that.
No. I remember specifically when I stopped talking to him, but I don't remember the date.
But that would have been the last time that you had communication with him?
Yes.
Okay. Has he tried to reach out to you at all since then?
You can answer that.
No.
Now I'm going to try to move forward to the year of 2016. Okay. Now, how often did Dan's parents see the boys after the homicide?
You can answer that.
As often as they wanted.
How was that arrangement? How was it? Was it they just called and asked and you would accommodate?
You can answer that.
Yes, they would live in Canada. So if they would arrange for, if they were coming down, they spent a lot of time in Florida. They had a place. So if they said they were coming down these dates, can we see the boys? I said, of course. I would cook them meals and arrange for sleepovers and swimming dates and play dates at the park.
Would you be able to give me a number of how many times they had those meetings since the date of the homicide up until now?
You can answer.
If you know.
It would be hard to tell you, just that when they asked for them, that they were coming down, then we had them.
You made sure to accommodate them.
Uh-huh.
Did they ever come to, are you ever aware of the time when Dan's parents came to visit your parents after the homicide?
You can answer that.
No, they didn't visit my parents.
It was really just to see the boys?
You can answer that.
Yes, just to see the boys.
Did they also maintain contact with the boys through the use of like FaceTime and phone calls, things of that nature?
Yes, but the kids were much smaller then, so facilitating that kind of communication was harder. They would try, but maybe the kids would hang up the phone. They were little, so not a ton.
Okay, did there ever come a time when you changed the boy's last name?
Assert.
I assert.
What was the reason for changing their last name?
Assert.
I assert.
Is it also true that there is a time that came you removed the middle name of one of the children?
Assert.
I assert.
What was the reason for doing that?
Assert.
I assert.
All right. Now, in 2016, there was a 2020 documentary that was released about the homicide. Did that news affiliate reach out to you for an interview?
You can answer that.
I feel they must have.
Around the time of April 19th of 2016, there is an incident where a man approaches your mother on South Beach. You weren't there, but are you aware of that?
Assert.
I assert.
Did your mother call you on that day to tell you that a man had approached her on the street?
Assert.
I assert.
Do you have an independent recollection of any conversations you had with your mother after that incident took place?
I assert.
I assert.
Did your mother ever explain to you any of the details of the encounter and the follow-up phone calls with the unknown man on the street of April 19th of 2016?
Assert.
I assert.
As Mr. DeCoste. If I can jump in.
Yes.
We've referred to that interaction between the undercover and your mother. There is a bump. During, and I'm giving you context to the question first, during the course of that bump, paperwork is handed to your mother. Have you ever seen that paperwork? As Mr. Loro. Assert.
I assert.
Do you remember that it is written in the paperwork? Assert.
I assert.
Do you remember if you spoke to your father during that incident?
Assert.
I assert.
As Mr. DeCoste. Last one. I'm sorry to jump around. Do you know the whereabouts of that paperwork? As Mr. Loro. Assert.
I assert.
Do you remember if you had any conversations with your brother Charlie after that incident?
Assert.
I assert.
When did you find out about the incident taking place?
Assert.
I assert.
Have you ever listened to any of the recorded wiretaps that were in relation to this particular case?
Assert.
I assert.
Have you ever listened to the conversations between your mother, or who the state says is your mother, and your brother Charlie?
Assert.
I assert.
Did you hear your brother Charlie and your mother talking about you on those phone calls?
Assert.
I assert.
Would you be able to testify that if you listened to those recordings, would you be able to, in the position to say that the voice belongs to your mother?
Assert.
I assert.
Okay, same question for your brother Charlie.
Assert.
I assert.
When was it that you were made aware by anyone that your parents and your brother were suspects in this case?
Assert.
I assert.
Do you remember if any, said to you, did Detective Isom indicate that your family was were suspects in this homicide?
Assert.
I assert.
Did he ever express to you that you were a suspect in this homicide?
Assert.
I assert.
Did you read the probable cause affidavit that was prepared for your brother Charlie?
Assert.
I assert.
And if you did review those documents, have you ever confronted your brother Charlie about the allegations that were made in that warrant?
Assert.
I assert.
Have you ever asked your brother Charlie if he had anything to do with the murder of Dan Markel?
Assert.
I assert.
Have you ever asked your mother if she had anything to do with any of the information about the murder of Dan Markel?
Assert.
I assert.
If you had asked her about that question, has your mother ever admitted to you that she had anything to do with the murder of your ex-husband?
Assert.
I assert.
Has your brother Charlie ever admitted to you that he had anything to do with the murder of your brother?
Assert.
I assert.
After listening to, if you have in fact listened and read all those documentations, do you have any opinions on whether or not your family was involved in the homicide?
Assert.
I assert.
Did you have anything to do with the involvement of your ex-husband's murder?
Assert.
I assert.
Okay, have you ever had an opportunity to review? Have you ever reviewed the 3-hour recorded statement that was given to Detective Isom and Agent Sanford by Luis Rivera?
Assert.
I assert.
Did you ever meet Luis Rivera?
Assert.
I assert.
Do you know Luis Rivera?
Assert.
I assert.
Is the first time you ever found out about Luis Rivera when the arrests were made in this case?
Assert.
I assert.
Is the first time you ever found out about Sigfredo Garcia when the arrests were made in this case?
Assert.
I assert.
And based on that recording, did you know Luis Rivera is accusing you of having been at Dan Markel's house the day before the homicide?
Assert.
I assert.
Have you ever had any communication with Luis Rivera?
Assert.
I assert.
Any communication with Sigfredo Garcia? Have you ever had any communications with Katherine Magbanua?
Assert.
I assert.
As Mr. DeCoste. On all of those people just mentioned in the 3 previous questions, Tara had asked you about communication. Would you assume I'm going to ask you now 2 different ways? First, with respect to those 3 people, did you have any direct communication? As Mr. Loro. Assert.
I assert.
As Mr. DeCoste. Now, with respect with those 3 people, and do you know the 3 people that I'm referring to, Luis Rivera, Sigfredo Garcia, and Katherine Magbanua? Assert.
I assert.
No. I haven't asked the question. You did.
You did.
No. I'm not done with the question, though. So we've got these 3 people. Did you have any third-party communication with those 3 people? Assert.
I assert.
Okay, so in terms of the media coverage of this case, I'm just going through the ones that I'm aware of. Have you ever watched the 2020 special on this case?
Assert.
I assert.
Have you ever watched the People magazine investigative episode on this case?
Assert.
I assert.
Have you ever watched the Dateline episode on this case?
Assert.
I assert.
Have you ever listened to the podcast done by Wondery on this case?
Assert.
I assert.
In regards to the statement or the Dateline episode that was the first time the Markels had given an interview in regards to this case?
That we know of.
That we know of. Why was it where they indicated they had been prohibited from seeing their grandchildren? Why is it that occurred? Why had you not allowed them to see? I need to rephrase it. Have you prevented them from seeing their grandchildren?
You can answer that.
Yes.
Why is that?
A letter became available in the public records suggesting that they would like the children to be placed with a Jewish foster care agency. So given it's not in the best interest of my children to be with people that wants to remove them from the only parent, they're now not permitted to be around my children.
Okay, were you allowing them to see their grandparents? By that I mean the Markel parents, up until that, I think you said the letter was revealed?
You can answer that.
Absolutely.
The moment that you discovered, was it an email or a letter? Do you know who was the communication between? It was between the Markels and who?
You can answer that if you know.
I believe it was between the Markels and the prosecutor on the case.
Okay, do you remember word for word what was in that communication?
You can answer that if you know.
No.
But the gist of what you got from it was that they were seeking to get information of putting your children with a foster group, I guess?
You can answer that.
Yes.
Since that time, do you remember when that happened?
You can answer that.
I think it was 2016.
Does October of 2016 sound about right?
Yes.
Since that time, they haven't had any communication with the boys?
You can answer that.
Not entirely. I have still given them updates about what the kids are up to. I've written them emails and talked to them about the kids' interests and activities.
Do you communicate with them only through email, or do you have phone conversations with them?
You can answer that.
I communicate only through emails.
Have they ever expressed to you an opinion as to your involvement in this case or potential involvement in this case?
Assert.
Assert.
Okay, have they ever had any discussions with you about who they believe committed this homicide?
Assert.
I assert.
Or is this conversation between you and the Markels just to do with the boys?
You can answer that.
From what I can remember, our conversations are mainly about the boys.
Do you remember them speaking with the individuals? Do you remember speaking with the individual? I think his name was Max Shear from Wondery, who did the podcast.
As Mr. DeCoste. Eric Benson. As Mr. Lauro. You can answer.
I have never talked with anybody, Max or Eric.
Did anyone speak to, I'm not saying the contents of what, but do you remember having the conversation with anybody knowing that it was about a podcast?
You can answer that.
I did have a conversation with someone telling them I didn't want to participate in a podcast.
Okay, did your conversation with that person go any further than that?
You can answer that.
They continued to send me texts and emails trying to get me to participate.
Would it be fair to say that the conversation just, even though they were making those attempts, were you just adamant about not participating?
You can answer that.
I think that's a fair characterization.
Did any other people reach out to you about this case? By that, I mean harassment or anything like that.
About harassment, you can answer that.
Okay, I get harassment on a daily basis.
If you can you give me a description or more details about what that involves?
Yes, you can answer that.
I get Facebook messages, Instagram messages, LinkedIn messages, emails. I get anonymous postcards sent from someone pretending to be Danny. I've had an employment rescinded based on people seeing some of the media from the campaign. It's a long list.
Okay, so are you just giving me have any of these attempts to reach out to you on social media been in a threatening manner?
You can answer that.
Sure. Yes. I mean, threatening in the legal definition or threatening in like, I hope you die in jail kind of thing.
That is threatening, I would think.
If we want to call that threatening, we can.
As Mr. DeCoste. Has anyone ever approached you in a similar fashion as Mr. Lauro? You can answer that. Bless you.
Bless you.
No.
Is your brother currently in Miami-Dade County?
Assert.
I assert.
To your knowledge, is he making any plans of leaving the country?
Assert.
I assert.
Have your parents made any arrangements, in your opinion, that would indicate they're trying to leave the United States?
Assert.
I assert.
As Mr. DeCoste. One clarification. You were asked a question, and I just want to clarify it, understanding that you'll likely assert about Charles living in Miami-Dade County. The follow-up to that, if the answer were then no, does he live in Broward County? Mr. Lauro. Assert.
I assert.
Okay.
How has this, I know we briefly discussed how this has affected you. How has this affected your mother?
Assert.
I assert.
How has this affected your father?
Assert.
I assert.
How has this affected Charlie?
Assert.
I will assert.
Is this case a reason why your brother Robert, you guys don't communicate anymore?
Assert.
I assert.
As Mr. DeCoste. A follow-up to that. Is that one of the reasons why your family doesn't communicate with Robert anymore? As Mr. Loro. Assert.
I assert.
No attempts? No one has ever tried to approach the boys?
You can answer that question.
Can you clarify?
Yes, you have never had a situation where you have been worried because of strangers or anybody has approached the boys or tried to bring up the case or anything to do with the boys?
You can answer that.
Not that I know of.
How old are your boys now?
You can answer that.
8 and 9.
How are they doing?
You can answer that.
They are wonderful.
As Mr. DeCoste. You guys up for a 5 or a 10-minute break? Go to the bathroom. As Mr. Loro. 5-minute break. As Mr. DeCoste. We can go off the record. Recess. As Mr. DeCoste. Back on. We took like a 10-minute break there. Is this me?
Yes.
Mhm.
As Mr. DeCoste, I'm going to give you some context first to my question that will help. On some of the things, it's going to be talking about things with Jeffrey Lacasse and things that Luis Rivera said. But before we get going, just on me personally, I'm a former homicide prosecutor. You and I are 2 days apart in age. For the past couple of years, all the time is gone. My late 30s went into this case. I don't believe that you were involved. I don't believe you knew. But there are still questions that we have to ask. With that said, what do you think happened, Mr. Loro? Assert.
I assert.
You gave your statement to Investigator Isom on July 18, 2014. You said, I knew this would happen. Why did you say that? Assert.
I assert.
In the same interview, you called your mother. Some investigators have said or given their opinion as to what your mother says when you call her on the phone and tell her that Dan Markel had been shot. What I hear is that your mother goes, what? What? In an excited, emotional way. Do you remember what she said when you told her? Assert.
I assert.
We have deposed Luis Rivera. We deposed him in the United States prison in Tucson, Arizona. Luis Rivera has been charged, and this is me giving the context, of course, charged in the homicide. He's cooperated. Prior to Luis Rivera being arrested on this case, he had gone through the federal system, and in the federal system, which I'm sure you know from past experience, a lot of defendants, when a big indictment comes down, start pointing out people to get a better deal. I think that is what Luis Rivera did in this case. He tried to point out Katie. He tried to point out you to get a better deal, because if he gives up somebody they don't already have, that's his currency to negotiate a better deal. Luis Rivera has testified in, we're going to get the question in a second, but it's important for the context. Luis Rivera has testified several different times, but to even a higher level of specificity when we deposed him in Arizona. He said that the day before the murder on July 17, 2018, before noon, we anticipate between maybe 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. that he and Sigfredo Garcia drive by the house on Trescott and that they see you and Luis Rivera. He says, I see the blonde hair. I see the blue eyes. She makes eye contact with us, that you were walking with your two boys, and after they drive away, you then turn and walk inside of the house. Is Luis Rivera telling the truth that you were at the house at Trescott Drive the morning of July 17th? Assert.
I assert.
My understanding from investigator Chris Papia, which is a sergeant now, Sergeant Papia and other personnel from the Tallahassee Police Department, as well as personnel at the Creative Daycare Learning Center, that your boys were at school that morning and hence couldn't have been with you. Is that true? Assert.
I assert.
In your statement, in your interview, you said to the extent that this is right at the hour and minute marker of 1 hour, 1 minute, and 59 seconds, and it goes until 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 24 seconds, that on 7/17 you dropped the kids off before 9. Is that correct? Assert.
I assert.
This will overlap. This is for the purpose of structuring questions. It's our belief, the belief I would imagine is 99.9% of people that Dan Markel was in fact murdered. Were you involved in the planning of Dan Markel's murder? Assert.
I assert.
Did you have any knowledge that Dan Markel was going to be murdered before he was murdered? Assert.
I assert.
Did you have any knowledge that Dan Markel was going to be strike that? After Dan Markel was murdered, did you learn? Strike that. Did you acquire any knowledge after Dan Markel was murdered as to who murdered him? Assert.
I assert.
Turning to Katherine Magbanua, our client, do you have any information, any evidence as to the guilt of Katherine Magbanua, irrespective of yourself? Assert.
I assert.
Do you have any evidence, any information as to the innocence of Katherine Magbanua? Assert.
I assert.
Do you have any information, any evidence as to the guilt of your father, Harvey Adelson? Assert.
I assert.
Do you have any information, any evidence as to the guilt of your mother, Donna Adelson? Assert.
I assert.
Do you have any information, any evidence as to the guilt of your brother, Charlie Adelson? Assert.
I assert.
Do you have any information, any evidence as to the guilt of your brother, Robert Adelson? Robert? Correct, sir. Assert.
I assert.
I want to go back to the marriage, your marriage to Dan Markel. Targeted into it a little bit. I'm just going to get into it for a moment, probably about a minute. Did he treat you well? As Mr. Loro. You can answer that with respect to the time frame prior to filing the divorce in 2014. If that is your question, you can answer that. If the question is post-divorce, she will assert, as Mr. DeCoste. I will re-ask the question then. Confining the questions to the time frame in between the wedding and the divorce in 2014, did he treat you well?
No.
My understanding and what I've learned through the investigation, the years of spending more time than I think any human on this planet has looked at the evidence in this case, is that he didn't respect your work. He didn't value your work. He demeaned you almost. Is that correct? As Mr. Loro. You can answer that prior to the filing of the divorce in 2014.
I felt that is how he felt. I can't speculate about whether he actually felt that way or not.
Fair. What I've learned too is he was difficult. He was a difficult guy. An example, if you guys were on road trips, he would have you drive the entire time and he'd be working and didn't want to be bothered. Things like that. Is that correct? You can answer that.
That definitely happened on road trips.
With that said, my understanding is around the time of the homicide, things weren't that bad. Is that correct? Assert.
I assert.
In fact, you guys were communicating well around the time of the homicide. So much so that the morning of it, you were able to have a comfortable and normal conversation, at least the exchange of voicemails. Is that correct? Assert.
I assert.
Turning your attention now to Jeffrey Lacasse, do you think, of course, you may not have personal knowledge for this, that Jeffrey would have been concerned that he would have been blamed for the murder? Assert.
I assert.
All right. So the questions that I'm going to ask you, these come from Jeffrey Lacasse's recorded statement. And I'm going to tell you when it's an exact quote, but I have to go through and ask the questions. I'll go through each one, but I will give it to you when it's an actual quote. Jeffrey Lacasse explained to the extent that you guys went to Gainesville around June 27th through June 29th in 2014. You had a really bad argument, and that argument was a reason or one of the main reasons why you broke up with him. Is that correct? Assert.
I assert.
He explains that after that trip, which would put it right at the beginning of July 2014, that you go to South Florida and that you come back to Tallahassee around, I would say, July 10th or 11th. Is that correct? Assert.
I assert.
Jeffrey Lacasse explained that the weekend before the homicide, you and he would go to the movies, that a few days after that, you go to yoga, and that it was around that time that you and he, that you broke up with him and that you sent him the no contact email. Is that correct? Assert.
I assert.
Here's a quote from Jeffrey Lacasse. This is his July 21st, 2014 statement. It's at the 2 hours and 57-minute marker. I quote, Wendi reported to me that Charlie considered all the options possible to take care of this problem. Is that correct? Assert.
I assert.
Now we're going to the statement that was made during his interview on March 6, 2015. I have 34 minutes, 38 seconds. For reference on the previous one, I believe that was a minute and second marker, not an hour, just to clarify that because I saw you taking notes. Turning now to the interview of March 6, 2015, 34 minutes, 38 seconds. Jeffrey Lacasse says to the investigator that you said on July 14, 2014, which was 4 days before the homicide, that, quote, Charlie had looked into having Danny killed in the summer of 2013. Is that true? Assert.
I assert.
He went on, and this is at 37 minutes and 11 seconds. Jeffrey Lacasse says that you said that Charlie said, quote, would cost about $15,000. Is that true? Assert.
I assert.
Seconds after that, Jeffrey Lacasse says that you said that Charlie was looking into having him killed last summer, and he was told it would cost $15,000. Same question, same topic, but it's now together, and Jeffrey Lacasse is explaining it again. I will give it to you again. Jeffrey said that you said that Charlie said that he looked into having him killed last summer, and he was told it would cost $15,000. Is that true? Assert.
I assert.
Finally, still on March 6th at 1 hour, 25 minutes and 49 seconds, Jeffrey Lacasse explains how you said that Charlie took you on what was called a celebration dinner in the weeks after the murder, and these were his words, that you puked on the table after Charlie said something. Is that true? Assert.
I assert.
Now, when I'm asking all these questions, I asked if that was correct, if that was true. There's two parts to that. The first part is whether it was said. The second part is whether Charlie actually made these statements. Do you understand that? Assert.
I assert.
Applying that to all the questions that I just asked, I will ask again. Is it correct? Is it true? Assert.
I assert.
Still, with Jeffrey Lacasse, and I ask these questions delicately, I know that it could be considered an invasion, but Jeffrey explained to me, he talked about his own work and his own experience, but he said that during that time, around the time of the homicide, leading up to the homicide, that you were taking Lexapro. Is that true? Assert.
I assert.
He went on to explain that it was your father that was prescribing you a double dose. Is that correct? Assert.
I assert.
Did you understand the question?
Yes.
Jeffrey explained that you were weaning yourself off of Lexapro and that you came off of it in a very rapid fashion. Is that correct? Assert.
I assert.
Two people, friends of yours, were switching topics, Jane McPherson and Janine Silverman. Would you consider both of those close friends? As Mr. Loro. Are you asking now? As Mr. DeCoste. If ever, Mr. Loro. Yes, you can answer that.
So when I lived in Tallahassee, they were close friends of mine. I don't know that there's not a falling out, but I wouldn't say we're close friends now.
The reason why we'll ask these questions is that we'll soon be taking their depositions. So it allows us to know what questions to ask. Did you ever have a conversation with either of them about the way that Dan Markel treated you about the marriage, as Mr. Loro? You can answer that prior to the filing of the divorce.
Prior to the filing of the divorce, I probably had conversations with Jean. I don't know. I don't think I had met Janine until after I was divorced. So I wouldn't have had conversations with her then.
But Janine, you think so?
Jean, I think so. Janine, no.
I misunderstood that. Janine Silverman, you met after the divorce?
I think I met Janine Silverman after the divorce. Jean, I would have had conversations with before.
Sitting here today, is there any way for you to remember any of the context of any of the conversations that you had with them? If you can answer.
I mean, no.
All right, last topic, last question. Testifying in trial. I get it. This is an unusual case. There's a want, almost a need to get the story out there, but to do it in a way there is immunity. My question is here has nothing to do with your guilt. It's going to be worded in a way that wouldn't even connect over to a named co-conspirator through which somebody can say, well, it ties back to you. So I'm not asking a name. I believe that it could be answered in a yes or no fashion or assert. Would your testimony in trial in any way go to the guilt of another person, as Mr. Loro? She's going to assert at this time.
I assert.
Do you understand the question? You can say if you understand.
I understand the question.
Do you still communicate with your brother Charles? Assert.
I assert.
Do you still communicate with your mother Donna? Assert.
I assert.
Do you still communicate with your father Harvey? Assert.
I assert.
With respect to those three people, do you still communicate with them in the same frequency you did prior to July of 2014? Assert.
I assert.
Is it fair to say that all of the questions that we asserted, that you asserted today, is that an indication to whether or not you will be answering them at trial? And by that, I mean, are there questions that you asserted your fifth today that your intention, if asked at trial, you would answer them?
As Mr. Loro, I can answer that, and the answer is yes, unless she's been immunized, so then you can cross-examine her on those issues.
I asked because I want to see how it is we would proceed from here, knowing which questions you've asserted. You know, we will take that up as it comes along. Do you have any questions?
I'll read it. Kappelman. I do not.
Do not.
As Mr. DeCoste, just to clarify, so with immunity, no matter what question we ask, you will not take the fifth at any question whatsoever at trial, as Mr. Loro. No. With immunity, she will answer the prosecutor questions. I think with respect to those topics, we will address the issue. In other words, she, as Mr. DeCoste, well, that's sort of my question, as Mr. Loro. She will respond to questions that the prosecutor asks pursuant to a state subpoena, as Mr. DeCoste. So the way it will play out, of course, you know this, you're going to be subpoenaed by the government to testify, sit for direct examination. You will then be cross-examined, still under their subpoena. My question is that no matter what question you are asked on cross-examination, is it safe to say that you won't be taking the fifth to any of those questions on cross-examination, as Mr. Loro? No, just the opposite. As she's done today, she will take the fifth as to the questions she's asserted. Okay.
Is there anything else that you think is important that you would like to add that we may not have covered with your questions today?
No, as Mr. DeCoste. Hold on. Your depo is next, as Mr. Loro. She asserts.
Did you understand all of the questions today?
You can answer that.
Yes.
Were our questions fair? In terms of, did you feel at any point we were trying to coerce you? Was there anything that was going on in this room that you felt threatened or forced to answer any questions? Anything along those lines?
You can answer that.
Did you feel threatened or intimidated in any way?
No.
Were you allowed to go to the bathroom? We didn't lock you up in this room and force you to answer any questions, right?
Yes.
Is your testimony today going to be the same as it is in trial, taking into consideration all of the things we just discussed? I asked that question. If there is any answer that you gave today that you intend on changing, would you let us know ahead of time?
As Mr. DeCoste, through your attorney?
Through your attorney.
As Mr. Lauro, yes, I thought that is going to happen.
We do reserve your right to read the deposition.
We would like to read, as Mr. DeCoste. I just want to ask a few things. Tara's nice. I have a tendency to have this put against me sometimes, so I want to make sure. No doubt a lot of people are going to order this transcript. It's going to be read by different news affiliates in different places. I would want to make sure that the atmosphere in this room is known on that transcript. Tara got into it a little bit, but I just want to flush it out a little bit more. How would you describe the atmosphere during this depo, understanding that it could have been something more stressful? Did you feel like the questions were delivered to you in a laid-back, professional way? You can answer that.
Yes.
At any time, did you feel ill, sick to your stomach, wanting to take a break? And I ask that. The reason for the question is that could affect somebody's ability to give the answer that they wanted to. At any time, did you feel ill, as Mr. Lauro? Was there anything that happened that prevented you from answering the question honestly?
No.
I'm still going to ask my question. At any point in time, did you feel ill, physically ill, not mentally ill? At any time, did you feel physically ill in this depo, as Mr. Lauro? Other than just giving a deposition that is stressful and difficult. I mean, it's kind of very difficult. It's kind of a very difficult question to answer, as Mr. DeCoste. You can answer, he can object, and if it's not privileged, it still gets asked and answered, as Mr. Lauro. As to that, assert the fifth.
I assert.
Of whether you felt ill in a deposition, assert.
I assert.
Okay, at any point in time, did you feel like you were trapped in this room, like we were not letting you leave? You can answer that.
No.
At any point in time where you yelled at during the deposition? You can answer that.
No.
At any point in time, did you feel threatened? Did any of us stand up and pound our fists saying we wanted something? You can answer that.
No.
All in all, understanding a stressful topic, the delivery of the questions to you, were they done and asked in a professional, laid-back way? You can answer that.
Yes.
At any point in time, did you feel we tried to trick you, creative wording, forcing an answer, not letting you answer a question? You can answer that.
No.
That's all.
That is all I have.
Deposition concluded at 12:03 p.m. Reading and signing of the deposition was not waived by the witness and all parties. Okay, so we're done. Finally. Thank you guys for taking part in this.
That was,
oh my God.
That was a long read.
My glasses and let my hair down. Right.
Oh, okay. Well, somebody said that he liked it when you pulled your hair down. So
okay.
So whoever that is, now he can be all giddy.
All right.
You.
I'm out of character now.
Right.
Yeah. So is there anything you guys would like to talk about or share in regards to your coverage of this case or anything about your channels?
I have a few questions for Joel. Like what's next for your channel? We've been enjoying watching you and your mother.
Well, thank you so much. We have a big guest tomorrow. We have Ruth Markel coming on. And she's going to be discussing grandparental rights because I host a podcast with my mother, who is a grandmother of 8. And so she obviously has her book, The Unveiling, coming out. And so she's going to join us tomorrow. And I'm hoping to have the episode live on, when I say live, I mean on YouTube and all the platforms, all the audio platforms on Sunday, which is Grandparents' Day. So that'll be out. And then on Friday, we're looking to stream live post the Arthur hearing. And I think Judy is going to join us for that, I hope.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I hope so. Although I still haven't totally confirmed whether it's going to be live streamed online. I haven't been able to ask.
I don't either.
If anyone knows, let us know.
I'll be there. I'll be in Tallahassee. So I'm going to post Wendy's drive-by route. I'm going to use the screenshots from the trial and actually drive the route into Truscott and go to the ABC store. And, I actually spoke to Ruth Markel today through email, and she's really excited about her website. It's beautiful. You can check it out. I believe it's ruthmarkel.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just emailing with her, and she sent me her media kit, like her press release for her book. And I'm really excited about it. She's excited about it and wanting us to share like some quotes from it. And I asked her for some quotes, and she sent me, I'm going to be sharing some quotes on my channel for her.
Oh, that's great.
I have one shameless funny plug. So if you go to Surviving the Survivor to our YouTube channel, we just posted, it's a 29-second clip. Every time we have a show, my mother, God bless her, who's 83, she either blows her nose and or spits out a Ricola cough drop, which is her favorite kind of cough drop. So we have now made a little video of this, and we're trying to get Kleenex and Ricola, or Ricola,
Ricola,
like to pronounce it, to sponsor our show. I thought it would be fantastic. So on our YouTube channel, we have all the information to email the marketing executives there and get Carm a sponsorship. So shameless.
She looks so cool doing it, though. I mean, she has the confidence to do it. She pulls it off. Hey, Fancy. Hey, you guys in the chat, any questions?
Yeah, we're ready to answer questions if anybody has any. I'm trying to look through the comments real fast to see if anybody had some questions here.
I noticed, when I was reading this, part of this has to do with grandparent visitation, and that's what our show is going to be about tomorrow. And the Dan Markel Act, which was passed in the state of Florida. It was just interesting to look back. This is this deposition is basically a look back in time, right? And Wendi in this deposition is talking about how she according to her, let the kids visit the grandparents, meaning the Markels, freely prior to the divorce, and then after the divorce, and then after the murder, because she claims Ruth Markel wanted the kids in a foster home, and I'm going to ask about that tomorrow, in a Jewish foster agency. Wendi, then, that was her reasoning for not allowing the visitation of the grandchildren. But that's, according to Ruth, that's the most difficult thing outside of Dan's murder about this whole case, is she basically has been cut off from her grandchildren, which is a horrible addition, obviously, on top of what's happened to her already. So that's stuff that we're going to talk about tomorrow. If anyone has questions.
I have a question, Joel. I mean, I know, wasn't it Jewish Family Services that was the agency? It's pretty reputable agency. I've worked with them a few times. Are you familiar with it?
I believe so. I think it's JFS. I think it's Jewish Family Services, I believe.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to have it's going to be Ruth alongside someone who's an expert in that world, in that field, work for one of these agencies. So we're going to try to get.
They're really good people.
Questions.
It's a agency. It's like they do a lot of really good things in the community. Very reputable group. And Karen Cyphers, yes, Fancy. Karen Cyphers has done incredible things with the grandparent bill. Does she work at the Tallahassee Democrat?
No. I think she works for some sort of like a think tank or policy group, I think.
Yeah, she's like a lobbyist. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused.
And she helps run Justice for Dan Markel. But she was really critical in getting the Dan Markel Act passed by Governor Ron DeSantis. So without her, I don't think it would exist. And I think Ruth would attest to that. So shout out to Karen Cyphers for all her hard work on all that.
Definitely. So, Joel, is your interview with Ms. Markel going to be live, or is it going to be a video for later?
So it's going to be it's going to be a podcast episode. So we're going to record it tomorrow, and it will come out on Grandparents' Day, which is Sunday, on our channel, and then all of our audio platforms.
Okay,
that's so wonderful.
Yeah. So Moth Moon has a sort of a question that says they had more evidence against Wendi than they had against Charlie. I don't understand why Wendi thinks she's untouchable. Well, I mean, I kind of think there's definitely a lot more evidence against Charlie. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think there's a a boatload of evidence against Charlie. Again, going back to the deposition, it was interesting. But DeCoste says in the deposition, I don't think you were behind this, which was interesting for him to state that publicly. I'm not sure, Judy,
Right.
you're the attorney here, so I'm not sure how that comes back to bite them, if in any way, if Wendi ever gets indicted. Would that be a problem?
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. I think he was clearly just trying to buddy up to her by trying to make him seem relatable to Wendi by saying we're the same age, we're just 2 months apart in age or whatever.
That
I've
was
been working
cute.
my whole career on this in my
A
late
little
30s.
flirtations with Wendi.
So he was just smooth talking her, right?
Oh
He
yeah,
gave
yeah. I
her
mean, that doesn't really matter that attorney said that he didn't think Wendi had anything to do with it back in July of 2019.
Yeah.
So
It's also interesting. You sent me Jeffrey Lacasse's interrogation interview, which I read it, and it was interesting because he talked about Wendy's ability to kind of coax people into doing things. Talked about how her, she kind of had a sex appeal and could get men to act in certain ways, and it became a detriment to him. It was interesting to hear about the psychology from his perspective and how it impacted him a little bit.
mhm. Yeah, it definitely made me feel so bad for him that, I decided to respect the wishes of the other person that contacted me and be like, okay, we don't need to read this verbatim. It's too emotionally wrenching, and it could be somewhat embarrassing to some of the people that were
Yes.
mentioned.
Yeah, he felt
he was a
very.
professor.
He was
Yeah.
very open about being very manipulated, I think.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Mhm.
I think that I did a video, Who is the Mastermind, between Charlie, Donna, and Wendi. And I had actually counted my lists of like the state's key evidence with all three of them. And I had kind of counted that there was the most evidence that I had personally against Charlie. So I almost, without knowing them personally, I believe of those three, the mastermind was Charlie, with the most of the state's evidence, like the Dolce Vita, leading to him. I think that's what kind of tipped it over for me, the most manipulative of those three.
Well, it's kind of a toss-up to me between between Donna and Charlie, though. I mean,
Yeah.
Donna sounds totally unhinged and very invested, and
Yeah.
just feeling like those grandkids belong to her, and she had more of a right to those grandkids than Dan did as the father. I mean, like, screw gibbers, who cares that he's the dad? I want those kids.
And there's things we don't know. There's evidence out there that we don't even know about, and if you get some, send it to the state.
Yeah, there's plenty that we only know what we know. We don't know what we don't know, and that could be a lot. But there's a lot. I think there's a lot of twists and turns, and I keep thinking about Charlie in jail right now, just sitting there and wondering. Mauve right here, Mauve Moon is asking if Katie will turn on them, but I keep wondering, is Charlie going to turn on anybody as he continues to sit in jail with a prostitute?
I have an update. I have a little update on Charlie's jail file. I just got the latest part of his jail file, his phone calls and his inmate status and inmate checks. And I actually have an expert who is looking over the file for me, along with me and my mother. Who we do our own little analytics and pie charts, but I have like an analytics expert looking over his phone call records. He's still talking to Janice Manaling, his therapist, and also the mother of his child is making some phone calls, Donna and Harvey. None from Wendi as of August, but I'm going to update that as they roll in.
Nice. So he's talking to his therapist from jail?
Yes, he is.
Interesting.
Well, we don't know if she's really doing that as a therapist. She could be his friend, his special friend.
She looks like a very intelligent lady. Shout out to Janice. And if it's beneficial to Charlie, I think mental health is very important. And, you know, he's being checked a lot in his jail cell. I think like on the 24th of August, he was checked 24 times in a day. So that means he's not sleeping really great. And whether it's, you know, well-being checks or just, I don't know if they're waking him up. We got to do more research on that, but he can't be in the best state of mind.
Wow, you said 24 times on
24
the 24th
times.
Wow.
August 24th of this year. And I mean, some guards are different. Like some of the guards check like 6 times a day. So I think it kind of depends on the staffing but he's had no incidents, unlike Katherine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he probably knows that he better be on good behavior because right now he still wants to be released on
he's going to make the plea. He wants out of there. He wants to be at home, and that's not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Judy, do you think the Arthur hearing, some people were saying it may have lasted or could last up to 2 days, but now it seems like it's going to be something that's like almost like a mini trial. But do you think it's going to be a shorter hearing come Friday?
Well, I have no idea because I have read online in general that some of these hearings are sort of like a mini trial. But then again, I did briefly read through some stuff that happened with Katie's request for pretrial release. And it sounded like for at least one of her motions, the judge didn't even have an evidentiary hearing. It sounded more like the judge just listened to the arguments of counsel and read over the briefs and then denied her motion. So I have no idea. I'm not really sure how long this could last. So Susan, maybe you could wind up being there all day.
I never thought about that. I better, just silence my phone, and I hope to just mentally take notes for you guys. So
hey, maybe you should quickly learn how to do live streaming from your phone, because I think you can do StreamYard from your phone.
I asked a mentor lawyer if I could stream in the courtroom. He said he has special permission to do that. I don't have that special permission, but if he's there, he's going to broadcast it for you guys and take good notes. And I hope to interview him afterwards. I hope to, if I recognize anybody, I'll get you guys an interview with my camera phone. Hopefully my cell phone retains its battery. I'll bring an extra battery source.
Bring your charger. No, I mean, I know you can't personally just bring up your cell phone inside the courtroom because that's against the courtroom etiquette. But
why not?
But I mean, maybe during a break or lunchtime, you can run outside and live stream from outside the building.
Yeah, I have like a ring light that I'm going to attach to my car, and I'm going to do that. I'll do like some impromptu videos and stuff. Yeah, hopefully I can do that.
Oh, we're totally looking forward to it. Okay, so people have been talking in the comments about the significance of Wendi allegedly cleaning out her childhood bedroom when she was visiting her parents before Dan's murder. But on the other hand, this is just typical, though. I'm sure she can just explain it away. So that by itself doesn't mean that it's really that incriminating, because she'd be like, well, there's nothing wrong with me cleaning out my room. You know, people clean, right?
I think Clip over here is insinuating that she was cleaning it out to create a new room for her, a more permanent
because she knew that her kids and herself were going to be moving back in soon. Yeah, I understand. But once again, there's always just some plausible excuse for it.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Okay. Wendy's the puppeteer. She planted the seeds. Who's going to be at the airport to watch the Adelsons? Do you think the Adelsons are going to show up? I doubt it.
They're not going to be there, I don't think. For the Arthur hearing, you're saying?
Yeah.
Not for the Arthur hearing, as far as I know.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll see. But I'm just guessing.
The camera will pan over there for sure. That would be news.
Yeah. I'm sure they don't want people bugging them or picketing, yelling at them and giving them evil eyes. Yeah. They said Wendi could have seen the police cars parked at Dan's house in his driveway from where she pulled up. Well, that's what the police officer said. Officer Brannon.
It depends where the tape was. I was wondering about that. If the tape was at the beginning of Trescott, or was it like 3 houses in? Because it looked like there was an indentation into Trescott. I'm going to take a look at that.
Sure. But the police officer said that you could see Dan's house and all the police cars and the investigative van or whatever, multiple unmarked police cars, everything, all the commotion and stuff from where he was stationed about 3 to 4 houses down.
Yeah.
So I would believe him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Believe it. In the words of Shadrick Nobles, believe it.
He'll be there.
Yeah.
Shadrick.
Yeah, I still think it's just like really goofy how Rivera and Garcia wound up meeting Shadrick Nobles in the parking lot and buying drugs from. Did they buy bullets from him, or was it just drugs? Maybe it was just drugs.
He didn't want to say. I know that's for sure. Whatever it was, they didn't hold it against him.
Yeah, and then he also was so nice that he agreed to get them the motel room in his name.
I think it was, I forget which one it was, but yeah, he got them the room and everything.
Partied with them, did the drugs with them, saw Rivera holding the gun.
I think Fancy said I should go to the bar where they had a beer. I didn't know the name of it. There's so many places. But
it's probably sketchy. I don't think
I know, like,
don't go there.
No, just Trescott.
Yeah.
You know what? You guys were asking about the Adelson showing up in court. I was thinking the Markels. Carmela is at home. Thank you for asking.
Okay. How's she doing? Is she still taking all her Ricolas?
Yeah, she's doing well. Thank you for asking. She's probably watching this and
good. Hi, Carmela.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Carm. Thank you for doing everything you can for this case. Okay, we'll hear about Charlie's weapons stash.
Yeah. It sounds like
they paid Shadrick. Yeah, didn't they pay Shadrick like $20 to do the motel booking? Yeah, I think they gave Shadrick $20 cash. Yeah. Okay. Can Charlie raise his go-kart during? Yeah, right. I don't know what's happened to his go-kart, but maybe his parents are going to sell it off for him, or his trustee will sell off his go-kart for him. Oh, let's see. Okay.
That's kind of an interesting point, though. About, I mean, we left. Hey, I'll tell Carm you said hello, Daniela. But it is true, because by all accounts, Charlie has quite a weapons cache at his home. So
that's scary.
If you were taking into account that you were going to allow him out of jail, what happens to those weapons potentially? That's kind of an interesting point. Would he have to, remand those weapons back to some official? I have no idea.
Oh, I'm sure law enforcement probably already seized it. Yeah.
I mean, they hopefully have that information. Of course they do.
Okay.
Sorry.
So do I want to play Shadrick Nobles? I don't know if I could do a believable Shadrick Nobles.
Believe it. Believe it.
Yeah, believe it. Well, he was a great witness. I liked hearing from him. He seemed.
I think they probably hurt his business. This trial probably hurt whatever.
Yeah.
He was doing, poor guy on the street. But he seems like a nice guy. Maybe he could change his life. Maybe the trial changed his life.
Yeah. Why didn't Charlie run? Cuba is not far from Miami. I guess he thought that he was getting away with it. So why should he hide?
You know what? I read that the Adelsons are on the FBI watch list. My last check of all of them, they are on the watch list. So I don't think that they can leave the country that easily. After probably after 2018, I think they were all not allowed to leave.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah, good. Yeah. If Charlie gets out, he would give himself a hooker and coke party and end his misery.
Sounds like he did.
Not a bad way to go.
Sounds like he was doing that.
He was doing that already.
Unfortunately for those girls.
Yeah. Okay. Shadrick Nobles was the star of the first trial. Period.
I hope he's doing well. If he's watching, we wish him well. Believe it.
I doubt he's watching us on YouTube, but maybe.
If the chance he is. Hello.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Someone asked if Charlie's required to pay child support from jail. I'm sure he is.
Wow.
I mean, it's still a court order, and the kid still has needs, and he still has assets and money somewhere, you would think. So,
Yeah.
I guess that's probably something his parents or his trustee, whoever has access to his money, can still keep cutting the checks to the child's mother.
The
So,
Adelsons are rapidly liquidating a lot of their wealth. I mean, just in attorney's fees alone.
Heard that. I heard that there were some empty, like some garbage cans outside of one of the houses. I don't want to disclose who or where.
mhm. What do you mean? Like there were signs that they're trying to clean out the house?
Said that there were some things outside of Charlie's house. Getting rid of things, maybe looking to sell it.
Well, just to mount these defenses and have attorneys at your side is very expensive over time. There's been a lot of time that has passed, so I'm sure it's hurting them at this point. And Harvey's no longer working, correct? So,
yeah. Okay.
The bills add up.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, they're definitely at a much greater advantage than the average Joe and Jane, who gets accused of a crime.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mauve Moon is asking, does anyone know if Jeff's car and the rental car were similar enough to confuse the police as to who was driving the car? Well, maybe if it were at night, because the rental car looked very silverish, depending on the light, it was like very, very misty, pale greenish silver was the rental car.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Jeff drove a 2004 Nissan. Was it Nissan Sentra?
Yep.
Yeah.
And, I thought it was interesting. Someone mentioned that was like a very popular car at that time, like in Tallahassee, that there were a lot of people who drove Prius, like light colored Prius. So they would blend in more if they were trying to get away.
Well, I don't know. I mean, where I am, Priuses weren't that popular back then in 2014. But I think what was great was that it was not only a rental car, but it had that SunPass transponder on it. Just the aftermarket little whatever, the thing on the side view mirror was an aftermarket part. There were distinctive things about that rental car that helped law enforcement track it down to Rivera and Sigfredo. Yeah. So, and the first rental car on the first attempt to kill him was a silver Nissan Altima, which now I can't remember what happened, but then they ended up getting a Hyundai. Was it a Hyundai Sonata for the first trip? Yeah.
Something was very similar to Jeff's car at the time. Like, I think it was like a Nissan Sentra was Jeff's car.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Charlie's. Okay, so True Lifestyles has a new video all about Charlie's travels. Yep, he definitely had been running around, living it up in 2016, especially, when he was getting all stressed out.
In 2016, I think the state is well aware of it. I mean, and shout out to Kathy for helping me with timelines. I made my own little rinky-dink timeline, pie charts and graphs and everything.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy, if you're out there.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy.
Very nice. Yeah. If he had his own TV show, it'd be called The Sleaze Factor. Okay. Shadrick is innocent, happy.
We love Shadrick. He's all about justice. We love him.
Yeah. Charlie has a ton of assets, not that easy to just unglue and dispense all that. Yep. I believe the court order child support doesn't cease. Yes, that's correct.
I've talked to a bunch of attorneys. I think the consensus overall is there's about a 0.03% chance that Charlie gets out. So
yeah,
chances are if the lawyers are right, chances are he's staying in.
Yeah. So for anybody that just only saw Charlie's motion, we know that the motion is very obviously biased and leaves out tons of evidence that goes against Charlie. and even misstate some things, like claiming that he's had no history of legal issues. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely leaving out his domestic travel too,
Mhm.
only counting international. I think domestic travel is important because he was just traveling all the time. Every weekend, it seemed like every other week he was somewhere.
Mhm.
Even if
Yeah.
it was somewhere to get on a plane. I think he spent like 2 or 3 days in Houston, New York, and Las Vegas and LA. Judy, you said LA. I wasn't aware of it. And then
Yeah.
Mhm.
That might have been on Fancy's
Yeah.
community tab or something, that thing about them going to the cousin's wedding down in Los Angeles.
Oh, that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Where he is sitting next to Wendi. Yes. If anyone can get the date, I want to add it to the timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, but of course, I think his attorney was focusing on the international travel to show that
Yeah.
he has no reason to flee the country. Look how innocent he
Right.
is, because he came back when he could have just ran off to these countries he visited. So
Yeah.
the international travel was more relevant to that motion. Well, the dental business did get sold already, at least maybe a couple of years ago. So,
Yeah, it got
so
sold.
there is no more Adelson
I
Institute.
think last year it officially closed.
Mhm.
It's unbelievable they were doing work up until like last year, and then someone tipped me off that they had closed it on Yelp. They were getting horrible reviews.
Mhm. I see. Yeah, and of course, they were complaining, or at least maybe Harvey was complaining to the CPA about how their business had been going downhill since those TV shows focused on the murder of Dan Markel and started pointing fingers at them, and so
Well-
business was going down the drain. Yeah. Okay. Do you guys know this? I don't think Donna is involved, but what do I know? I mean, that stuff isn't out there publicly.
You know what? I think so. I think she is because the mother of his child calls him in jail. I can't imagine a planet where Donna doesn't want to see the child in Miami or have some kind of influence over how things are going with her. I don't know. That's a really good question. But
Yeah.
Charlie is talking to the mother of his child almost monthly.
Yeah, and that's interesting because she said so many bad things about him in that child support and paternity lawsuit.
I gotta watch that again.
Yeah, so maybe they mended their differences, and Charlie or his family have already just gotten on her good side now by giving money or a place to live.
A witness, isn't she going to be kind of a key witness? And they're talking on the phone. I think he's probably maybe trying to influence her a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah, just like with his ex-girlfriends, right? Just trying to make sure they don't say anything bad for him.
Likes
and his
to talk
case.
to them up to the last minute till they go on the stand and buy them gifts.
Yeah, I feel bad for all the children involved. Well, I mean, he would have to make a motion in court to have that child, because it was still a court order. And I suspect that he didn't even fully disclose all his assets. He certainly didn't disclose his cash and all his vehicles on that asset disclosure or financial disclosure form.
I hope she gets every penny that he has.
The license.
Yeah, I mean, you have the innocent kid. The kid still needs money.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think there's a huge difference between a Sentra and a Prius. There's a ton of both models, and so who knows? I mean, because we definitely haven't heard Luis or anybody saying that they specifically had to get a silverish looking sedan. So maybe was it just a coincidence? Yeah, I don't know. Why does it seem like is it commissary? Yeah, commissary and phone calls are so expensive in jail. Shouldn't it be a little bit cheaper since the inmates can't earn? Do you have any idea, you guys? Why is it so expensive?
That eye care gifts is like they're making a killing, you guys. Send some gifts. I don't know. I guess like it would deter them from having to make a ton of shipments, because the price is going to make people like think for a minute, like, okay, I'm not going to send this all the time, and then they're going to make a killing. And I've heard from a source that like those special treats like cause fights in jail, so they can be traded. They're mostly traded for like favors for people who don't have people sending them. So it's more like barter and causes like fights.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, because you guys are going to think I'm funny, but I was trying to look up that jalapeno squeeze cheese that Katie is so enamored of. And sure enough, that thing is only a prison food. You can only get it through the jail system. So that's why sometimes later people are selling the jail food on eBay for really marked up prices, because they have really good chips that taste better than Lay's and Ruffles, but that brand is only for prisoners. So we can't even get those chips unless you know somebody in the inside that can bring you some. And this company sells the food for the prisoners, and you might be able to buy it in bulk if you want to buy like a big giant box full of
Keith.
Yeah, there were all these random things like sun-kissed drink mix. Like I was asking someone just yesterday, I'm like, have you ever heard of sun-kissed drink mix? And everyone's like, no, like, what is that?
Yeah,
I think that's a jail thing too.
Yeah, exactly. So this is
much.
People love it so much that now I think it is possible to buy it directly from Keith Group, but it's just that the prices are so jacked up. Oh, you can request product samples. Oh my gosh, request a product sample. Yeah, so the really awesome potato chips are called shebang.
Oh, wow.
The whole shebang chips.
You got to keep them happy.
Yeah, so luckily Charlie is probably the richest prisoner there, so he can curry favor with everybody by getting the shebang chips.
I've heard it's a good way to be popular. Although I don't think he's in the general population yet. So time will tell how he does when he goes and gets a roommate. Maybe he'll start talking.
Yeah, I was really hoping that they'd give him a roommate. Yeah. Why didn't they ever show the jury the rental in Jeff's car? Probably because it wasn't really relevant to convicting Katie and Sigfredo. So
I'm looking for it right now. I think it was a Sentra.
Yeah, he had a Sentra.
Sentra, okay.
Silver.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, maybe we'll wrap things up quickly. I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody's comments, but now we're almost at an hour and a half, and I'm sure you guys are busy and stuff. But I really appreciate, it's great to meet you guys because of the old Dan Markel case. So I was just thinking it's kind of interesting that Dan Markel was known to be the great connector, and he brought lots of people together. And, it's just really nice that there are people throughout the whole world who are watching our channels and caring about the Markel family and, very interested in hoping that justice will happen in this case. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The making fun of prison conditions is not a good vibe for this group. Okay. Well, I just thought it was interesting that there's some really delicious sounding food that people have said online that are really good, and you can't get it if you're not in jail or you don't know somebody in jail.
I'm only sharing what my sources have told me, and I hope you guys appreciate it. It's not meant to be, terribly negative, just meant to educate you guys.
Okay. Can someone more informed tell us how an Arthur hearing goes? I know Attorney Rashbaum will make a case for Charlie's release, but will the state make a rebuttal? Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, because someone said that the state mentioned using the previous trial testimony or information from Katie's trial as part of its presentation for Friday. So, this is definitely something that mentor lawyers should probably be talking about, because I've never had to conduct an Arthur hearing. So, you guys know?
I mean, I know it's a mini trial, so I think the state and the defense are both going to offer their sides, and I mean, it could be more lengthy than some people think it is scheduled to be. So it could go into the late afternoon. From what I'm hearing, it could potentially go for a second day, possibly.
Wow. Okay.
No hard
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna.
But now that I've said that, it'll probably be over in 5 minutes. So you never know.
Or 2 hours, 3 hours, or something.
They'll talk
Yeah.
really fast.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any closing remarks you want to tell us more? Everybody subscribe to True Lifestyles as well as Surviving the Survivor.
Go buy Ruth Markel's book. Check out her new website, ruthmarkel.com.
Her book is The Unveiling. She's going to be on our show tomorrow. It'll be out on Sunday.
Okay. Okay. So somebody's asking me, have I watched both of the entire trials? I'm still rewatching some things because I find that some of the information, for example, Luis Rivera's testimony at both trials, as well as Wendy's and Lacasse, I've watched it over and over again. So there are some things that I've watched many, many times, but maybe some of the bit players, like there was an investigator, Marsha Rodriguez or something. I only watched a little bit of her testimony. I think that was from the first trial. So I don't know. I mean, I've probably seen, say, like 80 to 90% of both trials. So I'm definitely not like Tony Lombardo, who has watched both trials completely 100% more than 15 times. So, what about you guys? How much have you watched?
I watch as much as I can fit in with 3 kids, which is a lot.
Trial and I need to rewatch it, and I watched parts. And we need to ask Tony who she thinks the key witnesses are for Charlie. And these new exciting witnesses. There's going to be so many new witnesses that'll be like all brand new almost, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. Well, unfortunately, it's getting way too late. I do have to get going, and it's pretty hot wearing this darn thing because I have to give it to Wendi. This dress is sort of expensive, but it's also really good quality. Which means
is it a sweater?
Really thick. No, it's not a sweater dress, but it might as well be one because it's so hot. It's like 2 layers, very thick and form-fitting, and
I thought
it's kind of uncomfortable.
Off-brand. It's like an expensive Nordstrom's brand. So wow. I'm super impressed. She's got that money.
Oh, sure. A $250 dress is just a drop in the bucket.
So nice. She wore it twice.
Yeah, exactly. It's good quality, but it is very hot wearing this, especially with a jacket over it. So, well, thank you guys so much again. And I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you on Friday, assuming I get to watch the stuff live and have a good trip through Lifestyles.
Yes, thank you.
Safe travels. Thank you.
Yes. Bye.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, the brand Dawn, it's called Club Monaco. So thank you, 5Car5, for telling me that is a Club Monaco dress.
I couldn't find it on Poshmark. I really don't think I want it though. It's not my
But
style.
you already made yourself a replica that looks very authentic. Okay.
Right,
well, thank you guys.
Thanks.
You guys can stay on a little bit if you want to, but we'll say goodbye to everyone out there in YouTube world. Thank you.